Okay, so the second question that I was asked in today's video was, how do you travel with your dog? What kind of things do you have to go through? How do you feed her? How do you travel? What about security? What does she do? What can she do? Things like that. Now, I happen to be, lucky enough that I have a physical issue that allows me to qualify to have a service dog. And so that has been one of the ways in which Sam and I have been able to travel, is because of me registering with her, registering her as a service dog. Now the thing is it's not one of those, okay, I can go register the dog and and then I'm good to go. No, there are actually requirements, and there's no real certifications from what I understand, but there is a certain code of conduct that your dog is, or whatever pet that you have, is expected to abide by if they are to maintain their status as a service animal. And so if you have a dog that you bring out with you, you're going to be in a much better position than if you have something like with Sam, where she was a stray, and I'm picking her up, and I'm trying to train her and get her to be recognized as a service dog. Now, do I need to have like a tag or a vest or anything else like that? Legally, no, but it is a selling point so that you get less harassment from places that you go into, because her being registered as a service dog, even yesterday, I was chewed out because I was inconveniencing a guy, because me bringing, Sam in because she's a service dog, was going to make everybody else want to bring their dog in, and I was just going to create a headache for him. And so you learn real quick out here who likes dogs and who doesn't like dogs. And, it's not really hard to discern. And then also another thing that you have to deal with is, okay, so because you're out in public with a dog, and let's say you go into a Burger King, okay, it's like walking down the center of a road, and you got one side and then you got the other side. And on one side of the road, you have people that don't like dogs, that have already set her up for failure and are looking for any type of excuse to be able to kick her and you out of the establishment because they don't like dogs, or their ideology says, well, dogs shouldn't be allowed in here, although being a service dog, it is her right and her responsibility. Okay, and then on the other side of the road, you have these people that are animal lovers, and it doesn't matter what that dog does. She's a good dog, and she can get away with anything, and if I try and discipline her in any shape, form, or fashion, then I get to deal with them like, you're abusing your animal, I'm gonna call the cops, rah, 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 rah. And the reality is they can't, calling the cops is just their ignorance and them being a bully in a lot of ways, because their life is dysfunctional, so therefore they want to be destructive in your life as well. That is the definition of a Karen. She screwed herself and now she wants to, but this is what you have to deal with out here, because you have people that just have their own that have their own idea and their own ideology about that animal. And then a lot of people will treat your animal as if it's their own by calling it, giving it commands, other things like that, because people no longer respect personal boundaries or personal property anymore. I mean, it's just the way it is. Everybody feels that they have the right to manage your life, and when you bring an animal with you, that amplifies. I mean, when you're by yourself, people will ignore you, but now you got an animal, and that is bringing attention. So as far as traveling goes, if she was not a service animal, we would either have to hike, hitchhike, hop rails, or something along those lines, because the only way that Greyhound lets her on the bus is because she's a service animal. If she was not a service animal, I would have to have a crate and she would go under the bus, and that would be something else for her, and that's something else for me to carry. And since I'm not housed up, this is something that is very important. Okay, so as far as what does she do, Okay, so I'm gonna have to really work with her on being a protection dog. The other day, somebody was running from the cops, and they showed up in our camp, and and ducked down, and Sam runs up to him and treats her like his long lost best friend. Out here, that would be the equivalent of a useless dog, just because most people, your dog is not a pet when you are on the road. Your dog is a tool. It is part of your arsenal. Not only does it offer you companionship, which is just a byproduct of having the animal around you, but it is supposed to serve a purpose or a specific function, whether it be keeping an eye on your stuff, acting as a deterrent, protecting you from intruders, protecting the camp from like rodents and stuff like that, because we have possums and squirrels and things like that try and come in, and those guys generally tend to pique her attention. So she will chase those, no problem. Sam, lay down. Okay. She will chase those things and things like that. But when it comes to having a dog on the road, you bring a lot more attention to you, especially if you're trying not to have attention. And, I'm dealing with a puppy. She's about a year old. She still has some maturing to do. So, she's dealing with impulse control. And, that's something you got to train out of it. Plus, it's part of the puppy mentality is they see something and they go. And and trying to teach her, because especially when you're in the city, there are people that walk by, and especially at night, she wants to go and make her presence known. And so training her to be able to announce herself when the person comes really close to camp versus like being 20-30 yards away from camp, and they probably don't even notice that we're there until she makes an announcement and starts her growling. And the thing is you're going to have to train your dog in that form or fashion as well, because when you have an animal out here, again, it is more of a functional tool, part of your entourage. Again, the companionship is there, but Sam needs to be more than just a companion. She has to pull her weight. I have to, for example, yes, somebody put some money in the tip jar, but I had to go use that to buy her food, and then I bought me some food, and just the food, because of pricing and everything else like that, didn't last very long. So instead of being able to eat the whole weekend on the little bit of money that was given to me in my tip jar, what I ended up doing is like I got maybe 3 or 4, maybe 500 calories on Sunday. And so, I mean, I had to go without. And so if you're going to make that sacrifice for an animal to not eat, to go without resources, to be barred from certain places, because even the shelters, they try in every which way to be able to say, no, we don't want that dog in there. We do not care. They will make up things like, oh, well, we need this and we need that are not even requirements. All I have to do is technically show her registration, and being registered federally, especially as interstate travelers, that is the proper way in which we need to have her registered. But if you decide to go the service dog route, you better take it very seriously. It is not something that you can just skirt around and be like, oh yeah, well, I want to, because the thing is you're gonna end up fighting a lot of people, because they want to discriminate against you or your dog. Okay, it's just the way it is. Okay, I just had to deal with it this morning over here at the raceway. I could buy a cup of coffee, but I can't stand there for a second and take a few sips and enjoy a quick cigarette before I get on the road. No, apparently I got to I have to move immediately. I'm just buy my coffee and leave. And that's messed up, but you have to deal with all these things out here. And again, the dog is just going to bring more attention to you. Plus, again, people are going to come up and want to touch your dog, play with your dog, give your dog commands, reprimand your dog, tell you how to manage your dog, and things like that. And this is something that after a while you got to either have the patience to deal with it, or you just got to have a thick skin, because it becomes annoying after a while. But anyways, you guys know how to help the channel. Become a subscriber. Everything else is down in the description. Tip jar, everything else like that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to share this on all your social media.